Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how a heart doesn't harden all at once, but little by little, almost without you realizing it? There's a quiet warning in Hebrews 3:7-13 that speaks directly into moments like these. It says, "Do not harden your hearts," and then gives us a simple but powerful instruction. Encourage one another daily. Why? Because the hardening of the heart often comes through something subtle. The deceitfulness of sin. Not always obvious, not always loud. Sometimes it's just a small compromise, a delayed obedience, a quiet doubt that we allow to stay a little too long. And over time, what once felt sensitive to God's voice becomes less responsive. Think about the season we're living in. There's constant pressure, endless distractions, and so many opportunities to drift into unbelief without even noticing. Temptation feels normal. Spiritual distance can feel gradual, even acceptable. But this is exactly why this message matters right now. Because a soft heart doesn't happen by accident. It's protected daily. So maybe today is a moment to pause and ask, is my heart still responsive? Or has something quietly begun to harden within me? There's something urgent about the moment we're living in. And if we're honest, we can feel it. It has never been easier to drift, to slowly slip into patterns of sin, quiet unbelief, or a kind of spiritual numbness that doesn't feel dangerous at first, but slowly hardens the heart over time. That's why the call in Hebrews isn't passive, it's immediate. Encourage one another daily, not occasionally, not when it's convenient, but today. Because today is where the battle is. And so receive this not just as a message, but as a timely encouragement, a gentle interruption, a moment to wake up spiritually and ask yourself, where am I right now? Scripture gives us real examples, not to condemn, but to warn. Think about Pharaoh. His heart didn't harden overnight. It happened in stages, each time he resisted God, each time he chose control over surrender. His heart became less responsive, until eventually, even clear signs and miracles couldn't move him anymore. And that path led to destruction. Then there's Nebuchadnezzar, a powerful king, accomplished, respected. But his downfall wasn't weakness. It was pride. His heart was lifted up to a place where he no longer recognized God as the source. And that pride created distance, not just emotionally, but spiritually. And he lost clarity, perspective, even stability for a season. And then, perhaps the most confronting example, the Israelites in the wilderness. These were people who had seen God move. They witnessed miracles, provision, guidance. And yet, over 40 years, their hearts wandered, not always in obvious rebellion, but in quiet unbelief, in constant doubt, in testing God again and again. And the result? Scripture says they were denied entry into God's rest. That's sobering, because it shows us something important. Proximity to God does not automatically protect us from a hardened heart. So what causes it? At the root, it often comes down to three things: pride, sin, and unbelief. Pride distances us. It tells us we know better. We can handle life on our own. Sin dulls our sensitivity. The more we tolerate it, the less we respond to conviction. But unbelief is different. It's quieter, harder to detect. You can recognize pride. You can often identify sin. But unbelief, it can live underneath the surface. You can still go to church, still pray, still say the right things, and yet, deep down, struggle to truly trust God. And here's the truth. Every one of us has areas of unbelief. Maybe you trust God with your future, but not your present situation. Maybe you believe He provides, but you still live in constant worry. Maybe you believe His promises, but only for others, not for yourself. And wherever unbelief lives, hardness begins to form. If left unchecked, it grows, slowly, quietly, until one day it begins to affect how you hear God, how you respond, how you see. Even the disciples experienced this. After witnessing the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000, the scripture says their hearts were hardened. Think about that. They were with Jesus, watching miracles unfold in real time, and still struggled to understand and believe. So if it happened to them, it can happen to us. That's why we need to recognize the symptoms. A hardened heart doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it shows up as spiritual blindness, where you read the word, but it doesn't speak to you, or a lack of understanding, where truth is present, but it doesn't penetrate, or even an inability to sense God's voice clearly. Jesus described it this way in John 12:40. Eyes that cannot see, hearts that cannot understand. And that's the real danger. Because when the heart becomes hardened, it's not just that we drift. It's that we lose the ability to notice we're drifting. Communication with God becomes unclear. Direction feels distant. Sensitivity fades. And here's something many people overlook. Hardness isn't always total. It can be selective. You can have a soft heart in one area and a hardened heart in another. You might trust God financially, but struggle to believe Him for healing. You might have faith for big dreams, but not for daily peace. You might accept certain truths fully and quietly resist others. And in those specific areas, growth becomes limited. Understanding is blocked. Breakthrough feels out of reach. Not because God is absent, but because the heart isn't open in that space. So maybe the real question today isn't, is my heart hardened? But rather, where is my heart becoming resistant? Because awareness is the first step to restoration. And the good news is this. No matter how subtle the hardness, no matter how long it's been forming, a heart can be softened again. It begins with honesty, with humility, with a willingness to let God search those hidden places we often overlook. So today, don't ignore the small signals. Don't brush past the quiet conviction. Let this be your moment to return to sensitivity, to clarity, to a heart that is open again, because the voice of God is still speaking. The question is, are we still able to hear it? There comes a moment in every spiritual journey where the most important conversation is not with others, but with ourselves. A quiet, honest moment where we stop and ask the deeper questions, not the surface-level ones, but the kind that reveal the true condition of the heart. So let me gently ask you, have you ever read Scripture and felt like it just wasn't connecting? Like the words were there, but the meaning felt distant? Or maybe there are certain promises of God you hear often, but if you're honest, something inside you resists fully believing them. These are not things we should ignore, because sometimes they're not just moments of distraction. They can be indicators, subtle signs that there are areas in our hearts that have grown resistant. areas that may have quietly hardened over time. And awareness is everything, because once you see it, you can bring it to God. That's why this moment matters. This is more than reflection. It's an invitation to come before God, not perfectly, but honestly, and to ask Him to soften what has become hard, to restore what has become distant, and to help where belief has become weak. So imagine yourself right now, standing before God, not with polished words, but with a sincere heart. Father, thank you for your patience with me, for not giving up on me, even in the moments when I've drifted, when I've ignored your voice, when I've chosen my own way over yours. Thank you for your mercy that keeps calling me back. And then, in that honesty, we begin to confess. Lord, I admit, there have been times I knew what was right, but I delayed. Times I heard your warning, but I chose comfort instead of obedience. There were patterns, thoughts, habits that I allowed to stay longer than they should have. And slowly, without even realizing it, they began to shape my heart. This is where many people stop. But real transformation begins when we go deeper. Father, I recognize the inconsistency in my walk with you, the times I was passionate, and the times I drifted, the prayers I said without truly surrendering, the moments I wanted your blessings, but resisted your correction. And then comes surrender. Lord, I bring before you everything that has been building quietly in my heart. The distractions I've entertained, the desires that don't align with you, the habits that have slowly pulled me away. Please remove them. Cleanse me deeply. Make my heart soft again, responsive, sensitive, alive to your voice. Because at the core of it all, that's what we need. A heart that still responds. And then we face something even more subtle. Pride. Father, reveal to me the pride I cannot see. The kind that hides behind confidence, behind self-protection, even behind what I call strength. Break every part of me that resists correction, every part that wants to be right instead of being changed. Remove the pride that compares, that judges, that distances me from others and from you. Because pride doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. And that's what makes it dangerous. And then we come to unbelief, the quiet struggle many carry, but rarely name. Lord, I believe, but I also know there are places where I struggle to fully trust you. There are promises I hear, but deep down, I question if they truly apply to me. There are moments I say I trust you, but still carry fear, still hold control, still doubt what you can do. This is where honesty meets grace. Help my unbelief, strengthen my faith, not just in what I say, but in what I truly believe. Teach me to trust you deeply, beyond my past experiences, beyond my fears, beyond what I can understand. And finally, we ask for restoration. Lord, restore what has been lost. Restore my ability to see clearly again, to hear your voice without confusion, to respond without hesitation. Awaken my heart. Bring back the hunger I once had for your word, for your presence. Break every cycle I've been stuck in, the cycle of starting and stopping, of believing and doubting, of obeying and drifting. Give me a heart that responds quickly, that listens carefully, that follows faithfully. Because at the end of the day, This is not about perfection. It's about direction. It's about a heart that is turning back, softening again, opening again. So, as you sit with this moment, don't rush past it. Let it settle. Let it speak. And maybe today becomes the day something shifts, not on the outside, but deep within. Because when the heart changes, everything else begins to follow. As we come to the end of this moment together, let's not rush past what truly matters. Take a second and simply breathe in the awareness of God's mercy. The fact that you're here, listening, reflecting, it's already a sign of His grace at work in your life, not to condemn you, but to restore you. So today, let this be your quiet turning point. Lord, thank you for your patience, for your mercy that never gave up on me. Thank you for speaking to my heart again, for gently revealing what I could not see on my own. And as you carry this moment forward, I pray that something deep within you begins to shift, that your heart becomes softer, more sensitive, more alive to God's voice, that where there was confusion, clarity will come. Where there was heaviness, peace will begin to settle. If there's anything on your heart, any burden, any struggle, any prayer you've been holding in silence, you don't have to carry it alone. Feel free to share it. There is power in standing together, even in prayer. And wherever you are right now, may the peace of God rest with you quietly, deeply, and continually.